I campaigned for Peter Shumlin last November, and I think he's doing a much better job than Brian Doobie or Jim Douglas would have done.
I certainly agree.
But you studied psychology at UVM, didn't you?
Yep.
And I studied psychology. At one point, I thought I would like to have been a psychologist, so I got 24 credits in psychology. Psychologically, it's very hard for someone who has a lot of money to give it up.
Yep.
And Peter Shumlin has $10 million in assets. Plus he makes, that's beside his salary as governor. And on $10 million, the income, the investment income is something like $500,000 a year. So he probably pays at least $100,000 in taxes.
Yep.
And this tax cut that Vermonters got from the Bush era, his share of it is what, maybe $20,000?
Yeah, hard to know. It was ironic when we were getting some steam going for our proposal, he turned and started lobbying Washington to raise taxes on the wealthiest. And that did a few things for him. That fit his idea that he doesn't want Vermont to be out in front on this issue because we'll lose wealthy people. And it also allowed him to support the principle behind what we were doing, which we know, upward of 70% of Vermonters support. If we passed a bill and put it on his desk, would he sign it? I happen to think he would. But with Democrats in charge of the Senate and the House and the governor's office, we don't surprise him. That's just not the way it works. It's very coordinated between the speaker and the pro tem and the governor. So it's going to be a struggle to get there. We need more Vermonters speaking up and saying this is a priority. We can't have more cuts anymore. We had a great rally by mental health advocates, came to the State House and said, don't cut us more. There was a cut in the end budget to mental health, but it was about half of what initially was proposed. So, by speaking up, people can impact the process, but it's challenging. It's very hard to organize people around tax issues. It's not an emotional, provocative issue for most people. So the psychology of it is difficult as an organizer. It's tough.
Yeah, I hope Peter wouldn't move to New Hampshire if we increase the taxes.
That's right. Well, he loves being governor. That we know. So
I don't think he would give that up.
Right.
On January 23rd, Sandy Haas put this chart up on the Progressive website. Everybody can see it there at the website. And it covers the past decade. And she writes, it would be sad to see this century emulate the Gilded Age of the 19th century. Is that where we are now, back in another Gilded Age?
Well, I don't know my history well enough to really straight answer your question, but if you look at income patterns, if you look at the growth, the economic growth over the past several decades, if you look at median household income, median is much more important than average, right, because it sort of is halfway. If you look at half of Vermonters, where I'll try to fall into the chart nicely here, this is where their median income is, okay?
Right, about $35,000, $40,000?
No, it's closer to 50. This is household. Okay. Household income in Vermont comes in right around here.
That's husband and wife both working? Household.
So it's we know that because of Act 60 and the way we pay for schools, so we have household data. That means that half of Vermonters are down here, okay? Fully half of them. And then probably another chunk is here, and then you have just a very few here. So the economic reality, who can argue with this? And again, I wrote, somewhere it's on the Progressive Party site, if I was trying to make the case for what we're talking about, fair taxation, and I was just inventing data and throwing numbers at a spreadsheet in order to build my case, I would not have the audacity, it's behind me here,
yes,
to draw this chart. I would say to myself, no way will people believe this. This is too beyond what seems reasonable to make my case. It's too extreme. But this is the reality. So we know that. People feel that in terms of working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. You have high schoolers who are working, contributing to family income. You have people who had good, solid middle-class jobs who lost their job and are now working 2, 3 jobs that are way below their education level or their experience. You have people with master's degrees serving coffee and begging, and the employers say, why would we hire you? This is, this doesn't match your experience. And somebody saying, please ignore my experience. I got to have this job at $9 an hour. This is very real for people. And I don't know if it's a gilded age again, but what we see is a gross unfairness. Something like 80% of all of the new money going into our economy in the last 20 years has gone to the top 5%. I mean, it's just astronomically unfair. You see it for farmers. We talk about farmers getting the same price they've been getting for milk for several decades. That trickles through our economy over and over and over. Important jobs like childcare workers, just not really given a fair shot at sort of the middle, mainstream America or the American dream of a house and a small family. And we're really removed from the idea of a livable wage and this concept that people should be able to work 40 hours a week and provide their basic needs and maybe have a week or 2 vacation. That's really out of reach for a lot of people. So it's very discouraging. I can tell you in Montpelier, as much as I like my colleagues, this basic argument is not front and center on many people's minds, which is one of the reasons why we use this graph. I handed it out on everybody's desk at least once. I posted it prominently in a big blown-up fashion on the Legislative Lounge. I wanted people to be thinking about this a lot. It's a small way I can try to inject that economic reality for people. It's very challenging, though. And it's very discouraging, I would say, to have it really be absent from the debate. And that's one of the reasons progressives are so important to have in there, because we will force that into the discussion as much as we can.